makes you feel kind of funny looking at all the friends.
Like they had the son of Sam where they had the slug from the gun.
Who is driven by some unknown and still vague motivation. The killer. Who is it?
That's a pattern. That's a pattern.
Linked to the same killer. You are listening to The David Newman Show on WXYZ Radio. Tonight, Winter's Fear, the children, the killer, the search.
The killer. Who is it? A man, a woman, two men, a man and a woman, a priest, a policeman, a plumber, or your next-door neighbor. As the questions began mounting, answers were needed. Some of the answers were born of hard evidence, other answers the products of theory, and still others products of the imagination. We felt it imperative in our presentation to re-examine some of those answers to see how they were formulated and why. It is now the consensus among investigators in the case that 4 of the 7 brutal murders were committed by the same party, probably a man who was driven by some unknown and still vague motivation. We asked Lieutenant Robert Robertson of the official task force heading up the probe if at this point there is any hard evidence to conclude without doubt that all 4 of the murders in question were committed by the same hands.
We don't have anything in common like they had the son of Sam where they had the slug from the gun. We don't have anything like that. But from the professional people we've talked to and from what our knowledge of the cases are, it would appear to be highly unlikely that we're dealing with 2 or 3 separate killers running loose in our community.
Supporting that theory is psychiatrist Dr. Bruce L. Danto, who tells us he bases his conclusion on a pattern.
Greenfield and Penn, I-75 north of Big Beaver, Bruce Lane north of 14, and Gill Road near 8 Mile Road. They always seem to follow a street name and a numbered street or highway. That's a pattern. Wednesday and Sunday abductions. That's a pattern. BL now seems to be becoming a pattern. And I think that this is what I would expect to find of what I call and what I think our man is, or the people. But the ringleader, if it's a group, I would call him a serial murderer.
Of the 3 murders not believed connected to the other 4, there is one that bears striking similarities in pattern. Jane Louise Allen of Royal Oak. She too disappeared on a Sunday afternoon. Last seen hitchhiking on I-75 north of Troy. She was 13. She would be missing for 3 days and later found in southern Ohio, dead of asphyxiation. No conclusion as to sexual molestation. We put the possibility to task force investigators that she too was a victim of the child killer, noting that she was within the age group of the other 4, that it was a Sunday, and she too was a straggler without companions, and there was no certainty as to sexual molestation. Task force investigators say they have looked closely at the Jane Louise Allen case, but have their doubts, because 1, it was summertime, August, she was taken out of state, and her body was hidden. Plainly, they say her murder, although similar in some respects, was not within the pattern. The final conclusion is then drawn that Mark Stebbins of Ferndale, Jill Robinson of Royal Oak, Christine Mihalich of Berkeley, and Timmy King of Birmingham were killed by the same person or persons.
There may be. I have that feeling somewhere inside me that says there may be a connection. I may know that person. Because it makes you feel kind of funny looking at all of your friends. No one's above suspicion when your daughter's been killed.
Working under the theory that there is one killer involved in 4 of the deaths, the next premise is to establish whether the killer is picking his victims at random, or is it possible he may know them, or may know of them. The voice you just heard was that of Tom Robinson, the father of Jill. She was killed last December. He seems to feel there may be a common thread among the families, perhaps unknown, but perhaps the link to the killer. Sergeant David Basha of the Berkeley Police Department, a former task force member, discounts the theory.
I don't know that the person we're dealing with has done that much research on these people he's picking up to say, well, he qualifies as a victim because his dad works on divorce cases or something like that. I don't think that the people or the person we are looking for knows or could possibly know or could have possibly known that Timmy King was going to go to the store that night, or that Christine was going to 7-Eleven that afternoon and be there waiting for them.